When it comes to love, avoidant personalities are often misunderstood. They appear distant, detached, and sometimes even uninterested. Yet behind that guarded exterior lies a heart that only reveals itself to someone truly special. If they sense you are the one, their behavior changes in subtle but powerful ways. These actions aren't random, they're rare, meaningful, and reserved only for the person who breaks through their walls. When someone carries an avoidant nature, the first thing you'll always notice is how carefully they build their walls. It isn't just about protecting themselves from others, it's about surviving in a world where closeness feels dangerous. They've spent years learning how to shut out, how to detach, how to keep even the most loving gestures at arm's length. But something begins to shift the moment they sense that you are different, that you're not just passing through their life. It doesn't happen like in the movies, with a dramatic breakdown and sudden confessions. It happens quietly, almost invisibly, through the way their walls start to break, not with a crash, but with cracks that appear in the silence. At first, you might not even realize it. They might allow themselves to stay in moments that used to overwhelm them. Instead of storming off when a conversation becomes too intimate, they linger just a little longer. The eye contact holds a second more. The silence between words feels less cold, more thoughtful. For someone who has mastered the art of shutting down, this lingering is monumental. It's their way of saying, I'm still here, even if they can't put it into words. These small shifts are not random. An avoidant doesn't lower their guard for just anyone. If they begin to let you close, it's because they've recognized something rare, safety. You may notice them sharing something personal, not the kind of detail they'd offer in casual conversation, but something meaningful, something that hints at the person behind the shield. Maybe they tell you about a scar from their past or admit to a fear they usually keep buried. These are not just facts, they are keys, and they don't hand them out lightly. Even their body language begins to betray the fortress they've built. Where once there was tension in their shoulders, now there's a slight ease. Where once there was distance, now there's closeness. Maybe even the subtle brush of a hand against yours that they don't immediately pull back from. To you, it may look small, almost insignificant. To them, it's everything. What's so powerful about this stage is that you begin to feel the unspoken trust. Avoidants rarely articulate their emotions outright, but actions replace words. When they let their walls crack, they are essentially saying, I'm willing to risk the part of myself I've been protecting for years. That risk is the purest sign of love they can give. It doesn't look like grand declarations. It looks like them choosing to stay when every instinct tells them to run. This breaking of walls isn't sudden, and it isn't linear. There will be moments they retreat again, moments they rebuild a piece of the barrier out of fear. But if you're patient enough to notice the cracks, to see the way light filters through, you'll recognize that those walls are not indestructible. And for the right person, for the one they truly believe in, they will allow those walls to crumble piece by piece until what stands between you and their heart is nothing at all. Consistency is not something you normally associate with an avoidant. Their rhythm is usually one of coming close and pulling away, reaching out and then disappearing, creating a push and pull that leaves others second guessing. It isn't because they don't care, but because closeness feels overwhelming and their instinct is to retreat whenever it threatens their sense of independence. Yet, when they recognize that you are the one, this pattern begins to shift in ways that feel subtle at first, but carry tremendous meaning. Suddenly, there is steadiness where once there was unpredictability. Their communication, once sporadic and uncertain, begins to develop a kind of rhythm, a quiet consistency that says more than words ever could. It might start with small things, messages that actually get a reply, a returned call instead of silence, an effort to check in just to see how your day went. For someone used to guarding themselves, this isn't natural. It takes energy and trust to keep showing up. But that's the beauty of the change. They choose to invest that energy because they've recognized you're not a threat, you're a safe space. Each time they decide not to withdraw, they're rewriting years of conditioning that told them closeness would only end in pain. Pay attention to the frequency, not the flashiness. An avoidant isn't likely to flood you with constant texts or long calls, but they will begin to reach out in a steady, dependable way. Instead of vanishing for days, they'll find reasons to stay connected. Maybe it's a quick message about something that reminded them of you. Maybe it's asking when they'll see you next. To anyone else, it could seem like nothing extraordinary, but in their world, it's huge. Every small step toward consistent communication is a declaration you matter enough for me to show up. Over time, this steadiness creates something powerful: security. Where their inconsistency once made you question, now their effort reassures you. You start to see a version of them that rarely exists with anyone else, a partner who is present, a partner who makes space for you even in their quiet, careful way. They might still need breaks of solitude, but they won't vanish without a trace. Instead, they'll let you know, even in the simplest terms, that they're stepping back for a moment, but not walking away. That's the mark of trust, the recognition that you deserve clarity rather than confusion. And perhaps the most striking part is how natural it begins to feel. At first, their attempts at consistency might look deliberate, as if they're carefully monitoring themselves. But as the bond deepens, it becomes part of their rhythm. They no longer have to think so hard about whether to reach out. They simply do, because you've become a part of their daily life. This isn't just communication, it's commitment. It's the invisible thread that says, you're not just someone I talk to, you're someone I want to keep close, even when closeness is hard for me. When avoidants communicate consistently, it isn't about habit, it's about love disguised as effort. And for someone who's always been afraid of attachment, that effort is the clearest sign that you've touched a part of them they never thought they could give away. Letting someone in is perhaps the most vulnerable act for an avoidant, because it means handing over parts of themselves they've worked tirelessly to protect. Their inner world is often like a locked vault, filled with experiences, memories, and feelings they believe no one could ever fully understand or respect. Most people never get past the surface. They see only the composed exterior, the calm distance, the fragments that are safe to show. But when an avoidant begins to sense you're the one, you'll notice cracks in that vault door. Slowly, cautiously, they start to allow you glimpses into the parts of their life that others have never been invited to see. It won't be a grand revelation all at once. Instead, it unfolds in pieces like puzzle fragments handed to you one by one. Maybe they share a childhood memory that shaped the way they see the world. Maybe they tell you about a failure that still stings, or a dream they've kept tucked away because it felt too fragile to expose. These aren't just stories, they are confessions of trust. For someone who avoids emotional intimacy, these admissions are monumental. They are saying, without saying it, I believe you'll treat this part of me with care. The shift is often so subtle that you might not realize its significance at first. You could be having a casual conversation, and suddenly they slip in something deeply personal, almost as if testing the waters. They'll watch how you respond, not for judgment, but for safety. If you handle their openness with kindness, the door creaks open a little wider. If you show empathy without pressure, they learn it's safe to bring you closer still. This slow process is their way of building intimacy, on their terms, at their pace, but always with intention. Letting you in isn't only about words, it's also in the way they invite you into their routines, their spaces, their silences. An avoidant who once guarded their personal world may start allowing you to see the little details. Where they go when they need to think, what songs they play when no one's around, the books or journals that shape their perspective. You'll notice them welcoming you into places that once felt off limits, whether that's their apartment, their favorite hidden cafe, or simply the quiet corners of their mind. Each invitation is a gesture of inclusion, a sign that they no longer see you as a stranger, but as part of their inner circle. Perhaps the most telling part is the emotional weight of what they choose to reveal. They might open up about past relationships, not in a way that compares, but in a way that admits hurt and healing. They may share the fears that keep them up at night or the hopes they rarely dare to voice. It's raw, it's real, and it's rare. You won't find this level of openness in casual connections because it's reserved only for the person they truly trust. When avoidants let you in, they're handing you the keys to the parts of themselves they've hidden from the world. It's not about needing someone. It's about choosing someone. And if they choose you, it means they've recognized something extraordinary, that your presence doesn't threaten their independence, but enriches it, that your closeness doesn't suffocate them, but makes them feel seen. That is the quiet power of being the one they finally let inside. Care, for an avoidant, rarely looks like the traditional picture we often expect. They may not shower you with dramatic words of affection, nor will they always feel comfortable with the constant physical closeness that others use to show love. But when they know you're the one, their care begins to leak out in subtle, almost hidden ways. It shows up not in loud gestures, but in the quiet details they pay attention to, the unspoken ways they start prioritizing you without ever admitting it directly. These acts may appear small to the outside world, but to them, they are monumental steps of love. You'll notice it in the way they remember things you didn't even realize you mentioned. Maybe you once casually said you like a certain snack, and suddenly it's waiting for you when you visit. Perhaps you mentioned feeling anxious before a meeting, and you get a simple but grounding message wishing you luck. These little acts are not random, they are intentional. Avoidants are not careless people. They are cautious with where they invest their energy. If they're putting effort into your comfort, it's because you've become someone they genuinely care for. It can also be seen in their protectiveness. They might walk you to your car late at night, not making a big deal about it, but ensuring you're safe. They might check that you got home after a long day or make sure you have everything you need when you're not feeling well. To them, these aren't grand gestures, they're quiet promises. In their mind, actions speak louder than the words they find hard to say. I care about you. Doesn't always come out verbally. It shows up when they rearrange their schedule just to be there for you in small but meaningful ways. Even their presence becomes an act of care. An avoidant who usually withdraws from emotional intensity may start staying through the discomfort simply because they don't want you to feel alone. They may not know what to say when you're upset, but they'll sit beside you, offer a steady presence, or find a practical way to lighten your burden. It might not look like the picture-perfect idea of romance, but it is their love language, quiet and steady. Another layer of their care is found in compromise. Avoidants treasure their independence fiercely, but when they begin to prioritize your needs alongside their own, that is an extraordinary shift. They'll give up a little solitude to spend more time with you, or they'll adjust their routines to fit yours without making it seem like a sacrifice. This is their way of weaving you into their life, proving through small choices that you matter. The truth is, their acts of care often go unnoticed by others because they're not showy. But if you look closely, you'll see how much intention lies behind them. They may not say, "I love you," every day, but they'll fix something broken in your home, drive across town to help you out, or remember every detail that makes you smile. These actions are not casual. For an avoidant, they are the purest way of saying, "You're important to me more than you know." For someone who lives in the avoidant space, the future is often a place they don't like to visit. Thinking too far ahead feels risky because it implies permanence, and permanence carries the weight of expectations, vulnerability, and possible loss. Most of the time, they live in the present, keeping their connections light enough that they can step away without too much damage. But when they know you are the one, something begins to shift in the way they speak, in the way they imagine, and in the way they allow you into their vision of what's to come. Suddenly, the future isn't as frightening. It becomes something they start weaving you into, even if subtly, even if in small, almost careless sounding ways. It might first appear in casual language. They'll say things like, "Next time we go there," or "Summer day, we should try that together." These are not just throwaway lines. They are signals. An avoidant doesn't plan for a next time unless they're already imagining you still being around. Their words, though simple, carry the weight of intention. In their guarded world, this is them quietly acknowledging that you're not temporary. You're someone they're beginning to picture in the days ahead. The more secure they feel, the more these future echoes grow. They might mention vacations they'd like to take with you, or things they'd want to show you one day. Sometimes it's practical, like talking about goals, living arrangements, or family. Other times it's light-hearted, like joking about where you'll both be years from now. But underneath the tone is something rare hope. They're allowing themselves to hope for a future with you in it, even if hope has always felt dangerous before. You'll also notice it in the way they start to include you in decisions. Maybe it's about choosing a weekend plan, or maybe it's about something bigger, like career moves or lifestyle changes. Their instinct is usually to make choices alone, free from entanglements. But if they're asking your opinion, considering your feelings, or telling you their plans before acting, that's a profound sign. It means they're not just thinking about themselves anymore, they're thinking in terms of wit. Future echoes also show up in the way they build routines with you. What once felt like fleeting moments begins to settle into patterns. They'll suggest doing something every Friday or mention traditions they'd like to start together. It's subtle, but it marks a shift from avoiding attachment to embracing it. In these patterns, they're quietly laying the foundation for something lasting. Perhaps the most touching part is how natural these hints can feel once they trust you. They might not even realize they're including you in their vision until the words slip out. That unguarded glimpse is what makes it so meaningful. For someone who guards their independence fiercely, allowing you into their future is not just a gesture. It's a declaration of trust and love. When avoidants start to speak in future tense, it's never by accident. It means they've found someone worth planning for, someone who makes tomorrow feel less like a threat and more like a promise. And in their quiet, cautious way, it's how they say, "I see you not just today, but in every day I want to come." Silence can often feel unsettling in a relationship, especially with someone who has avoidant tendencies. Their quiet moments can be mistaken for indifference or distance, when in reality, silence is often their way of processing emotions too big to put into words. But when they know you are the one, their silence changes. It stops being an escape and begins to take on a new meaning, a form of reassurance that speaks louder than anything they could ever say. For avoidants who struggle to express affection openly, this silent presence becomes their purest form of intimacy. Instead of retreating when emotions feel overwhelming, they choose to stay. That choice alone is a statement. They may not say, "I love you," in the moment, but you'll feel it in the way they sit beside you during your struggles, in the way they don't walk away when vulnerability fills the air. For them, remaining present through silence is a powerful act of devotion. It's their way of saying, "I'm here with you, even if I can't articulate it." This silent reassurance also appears in their subtle gestures. A glance that lingers, a hand placed gently on yours, or the way they lean toward you without speaking. These moments carry a depth words could never capture. For someone who has always built walls with language, either by withholding or deflecting, choosing to communicate through presence is monumental. They're showing you their love through energy, not speech, because sometimes words feel too fragile to hold what they feel. You may notice it most when life feels heavy. In times of conflict, instead of disappearing to protect themselves, they may quietly stay in the room, listening even if they don't respond right away. During your own moments of pain, they might not know the right thing to say, but they'll bring you tea, wrap a blanket around you, or simply sit in the silence with you. These small, quiet acts are not avoidance, they're commitment. They're demonstrating that even when emotions are uncomfortable, you're worth enduring the discomfort. For avoidance, reassurance also shows up in the consistency of their presence. They may not flood you with declarations of love, but you'll see it in the way they show up when you need them most. They'll be there, often in quiet ways, offering steadiness rather than speeches. And over time, you begin to realize their silence isn't emptiness, it's stability. It's the calm that anchors you when everything else feels uncertain. This form of love is deeply intimate because it is raw and unpolished. There are no rehearsed words, no practiced expressions, only the authenticity of presence. And when they allow you to feel safe in their silence, it means they've given you something rare access to the most vulnerable part of themselves. For them, silence isn't a retreat anymore. It's a promise, a way of telling you, you are the one I'll stay with, even when I don't have the words. When you step back and look at all these subtle shifts, you realize something powerful. Avoidants don't reveal their love through grand displays or constant declarations. They reveal it through change. The walls that once kept you out begin to fall. The silence that once created distance becomes a quiet form of comfort. The inconsistency that used to confuse you turns into steady presence. They start to share the pieces of themselves they've hidden from the world, and their care begins to show in the smallest, most intentional ways. And perhaps most telling of all, they start weaving you into a future they never dared to imagine with anyone else. This is the language of love for someone who has spent their life afraid of it. It's not loud, it's not always obvious, but it is real, real enough to transform their patterns, to soften their defenses, and to let you in where no one else has been allowed. If you see these signs, understand the depth behind them. Because for an avoidant, these aren't just habits changing. These are confessions without words. These are vows without ceremony. These are the ways they say, in the only way they know how, you are the one.